Pete's sake. Welcome back. When I get crushed by gravel. Thankfully I didn't do much damage. Or any, actually. Alright, we're gonna try and get some 5 levels to get efficiency 1. What was I gonna say? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, last episode I spoke about what sort of terms are a wee bit irritating. Ooh, GG, Brink with a kill. So when people refer to the whole of the UK as England, that's a wee bit annoying. When people refer to like the Queen, for example, as the Queen of England, that's a wee bit annoying. Oh, hello, I hear mobs. So yeah, that's, yeah. In terms of, historically, obviously not everyone's interested in history. I get that, but if you are, or even if you're somewhat interested in how the Union came about, because obviously Scotland was an independent country for... Well, I mean, here's the thing. When does a country not become independent, but when does it come into being? I mean, Scotland wasn't in its present form. Well, I say its present form. Currently, its land borders within the United Kingdom, like with all the islands and all that, that didn't occur until like the 15th century. It was like mid-1400s. That was when... Oh, hello. Did I just hear... I feel like I just heard a block break. I don't want to fight someone. I just escaped a cave last time. Anyway, yeah. So the present border, and I think the first time that the present border, I say present border again, this was in the context of a fully sovereign independent nation, whereas now obviously we're part of a wider independent nation. Oh hi. But yeah, the present border, it came around when the Norwegians gave Scotland back or not gave Scotland back, but basically there's 2 islands in the very north of Scotland called the Orkney Isles and the Shetland Isles, and they were part of the Kingdom of Norway off the back of the Viking raids and all that. And it was only, as I said, mid-15th century, 1400s, when they were given back to Scotland. I can't remember if there was a money paid. I'm sure there was money paid or whatever, but it was only from that period, from mid 1400s to 1707, when Scotland was independent, but independent in its kind of with its borders and boundaries of today, if you like. I'm sure there's discrepancies in various places. I'm sure the border with England might have fluctuated a wee bit. I mean, there probably wasn't even a border with England. It was probably just like arbitrary. It was probably just like, oh yeah, Scotland's somewhere over there, England's somewhere over there, and if you happen to walk on the wrong side, then there's a good chance you're going to get hurt, basically. So that's about what, that's like 250 years, we'll just say. Conservative estimate, 250 years of Scotland being independent, but with the border of today. But the thing is, Scotland was independent even before that. The official founding of Scotland was said to be by a king called Kenneth MacAlpine, and that was around 843, I think, which means from that time, 843, until... And I think that's to do with sources. When is Kenneth MacAlpine's name first recorded in the sources as being king of... He wasn't recorded as being king of Scotland, he was recorded as being king of the Picts, which the Picts were an ancient peoples that lived in the land known today as Scotland. I think that's... The founding of Scotland is to do with when was Kenneth MacAlpine's name first mentioned as king. And from 843 to the Union in 1707, that's about 800 and... just over 850, 860 years. So, about 140 years shy of a millennium. But that's generally the accepted founding date, around about 843, I think it was. AD 843. Oh yeah, we've got 6 levels now. Hang on, let's just mine all this. Apologies if you're not interested in history, but I can't think of what else to talk about. This is what I was well, this is what I've researched my whole life, just out of interest. Where are we? Where's the book? There's the book. I think we'll use the Prot 3 if we can get the right amount of diamonds for armour. Did we get enough for power 4? Yeah, I think we did get enough for power 4. We can get started on that, actually. What was I going to say? Yeah, so 843 through to 1707 is probably what most people would... I think most historians, maybe not most historians, but some historians at least would say that's the period of, you know, Scotland as a nation. Now, that does throw... There's a lot of areas when that could be disputed. For example, I'm listening to an audiobook at the minute called England and the 100 Years' War. The 100 Years' War was between England and France, and Scotland had played a big part in that because, you know, Scotland often fought with France. But the issue is that this audiobook that I'm listening to, which is about... we need to go and smelt up the stuff that I left furnaces. I need to smelt stuff up in it. The book is from an English point of view. Obviously, history changes based on who wrote the sources, or how the sources are interpreted. And this is an English source, and the belief is that Scotland for a time was overlorded, shall we say, by the Kingdom of England, which probably reduces its independent state from an independent country to a principality, or a kingdom of a vassal, or something like that. That's obviously probably a hotly debated topic. I don't know a huge amount about the ins and outs, because at times did the King of Scotland swear fealty to an English king? Yes. For example, there was a time when Scotland didn't have a king, and the Scottish nobles... It was in a time when Scotland had favourable relations with England. And the Scottish nobles were said to the King of England, "Yo, make us a king." King of England was like, "Sure, here you go. This can be your king, but you can only be your king if he swears fealty to me." And so, for a time... And when I say a time, we're not talking about a long time, but for a time, the Scottish king did swear fealty to the King of England. But I would argue in that kind of a case, or not me personally, I'm not arguing any point, but some people would argue, to what extent was that legitimate? To what extent was the degradation of the country legit, in that the king wasn't just doing it more than ceremonial? So was the king just doing it to stop war from happening? Was the king just doing it because he wanted to keep his title? You could argue it doesn't matter, he was still swearing fealty. But besides that, there was also there's a long time period that historians will look at as being a time when England laid claim to the Scottish throne. Whether or not Scots swear fealty to them or not, if you get what I'm trying to say. So even if the King of Scotland wasn't visiting not Westminster, London or England or whatever, and saying, "Oh yeah, King, you are my overlord," even if he wasn't doing that, they would argue that the status of Scotland was still questionable, because the Kings of England they would still lay claim to it, even if they didn't have legal or rightful claim over it. And so that puts into doubt the status of Scotland in terms of, well, was it fully independent? Was it just a principality? Was it just a territory of a vassal? How does that work? What's the politics of that? In fact, the audiobook I was listening to said that It was only until after the Second Scottish War of Independence, which technically concluded around the middle of the 14th century. It was only until then that Scotland, the English no longer lay claim to it, basically. There was no legitimate reason for them to do so, like in terms of they didn't have some sort of heir that was related to someone in England that could claim the throne, or maybe there just wasn't any willpower. So yeah, it's up for debate, and I've done a very bad job of explaining it. But that just it doesn't just apply to Scotland, but it probably applies to many countries, because countries back in those days were obviously a lot different to what they are now. For starters, the monarchy and the upper class obviously ruled by and large. There wasn't elected governments like we have now, so countries were very, very different. Well, in some ways it was elected governments, but you could only elect governments if you were of a certain vintage or a certain class, shall we say. So it doesn't just go for Scotland, it goes for pretty much every country. Take England for example. In 1066, one of the most famous dates in English history, Norman the Conqueror, who was a Norman, funnily enough. Wait, Norman the Conqueror? Was that his name? Norman the I don't think it was Norman though, but he was a Norman. Maybe okay, whatever. I've just completely forgotten my history. But basically, in 1066, the Normans conquered England, and their leader was a vassal of the French king. So, there was a vassal of the French kingdom who had land. Oh no. Slushy Bunyan. Should we go for him? We've got to. Really don't want to. Okay, this could be game over, folks. I hate doing this. Oh, I feel bad. Wow, I can't believe it. I can't believe I didn't get anything either. I didn't take much damage either, thankfully. Oh, I don't believe that. I would hate that if that happened to me. Oh, wow. Oh, right, okay, well, whatever, we've done it, we've killed somebody. Did he... Wait, is branch mining on? He must have branch mined into my cave. It's EP 3, right? I mean, it's not EP 2. I mean, I'm not against EP 2 killing, but I felt like after we passed up that opportunity before, it's probably time to... probably time to, actually do some fighting. Wow, that got my heart racing. Yeah, I would hate that if that was me. Genuinely. So why did I do it? Well, I don't know. I feel like I made the right choice. Should we go and fight early? I mean, I kind of want to get like full power 4. Let's try and get power 4. Yeah, apologies Slushy if you're watching, although I don't blame me if you're not. Right. Anyway, yeah. What were we talking about? Just how countries back in the day were a lot different, and how it's not really feasible to say how old a country is, when it was independent, what its status was at any given era. That's basically what we're trying to think about. And as I said, it's very, very difficult. And obviously it relies on sources, and sources aren't always they don't always agree. So yeah. That's just some background info in the history of Scotland anyway, which I'm obviously fairly knowledgeable on. I say fairly, I mean like, there's a lot of people that have no clue about the history of their country, but I've I've got a wee bit of an idea. What we're going to do is... Hey, that was a Scotland-England battle right there. Very appropriate for what we've been discussing. Right. Power 2. Oh yeah, so I guess to get onto the other topic I was going to speak about, why did the Act of Union happen between Scotland and England? Well, basically, Scotland was bankrupt, and if there wasn't an Act of Union, then a lot of people were probably going to really suffer. In fact, there'd been a big famine and a lot of the population had already perished. So it was like, you know, there was no hope, basically. I think that was the idea. There was no hope in terms of, you know, being able to feed the population. Basically, Union opened trade with England and all of England's colonies, because England had a massive empire at the time. And Scotland was bankrupt because Scotland had tried to make an empire and failed epically. And so, yeah, that's why the Act of Union happened. So there's also claims of bribery, which I read about when I was younger, and you know, they seem to make sense. Are they true? How much truth is there in those claims? I don't know. But it seems like it wasn't just Scotland that had problems feeding their population, because apparently the famine that caused it spread around Europe. So what's called a mini ice age. There was a mini ice age at the time. Temperatures kind of dropped a wee bit, and I think that contributed to crop failure. Obviously at a time when crops were more, you know, the risk of crop failure was a lot higher. I need to remember to make a sword and not just use the smite sword, although knowing me, I'll probably just end up using it. Oh, wait, hang on a minute. Okay, never mind. I thought I combined... Oh, I made too many bows. Whoops. Ciao. Alright, we need 5 levels. Well, 10 levels in total. Anyway. So yeah, the Act of Union happened basically to safeguard the future of the Scottish population, and it's still going today. And you could argue it's been a good thing in the sense that, I mean, it's hard to argue it would be a bad thing, because obviously the 18th and 19th century there was a lot of like Scottish inventors. You know, Scotland gave a lot to the world. For example, the TV was invented in Scotland. What else? The electric light bulb, I think. Put it this way, if you go on Wikipedia or whatever and check out how, like, what major things were invented in Scotland, you'll be surprised, because there was actually quite a lot. And would that have been possible without Union? Probably not. You know, for starters, the inventors may not have survived if Scotland had continually had crop failure and whatnot, or famine issues. And yeah, obviously Scotland became a big player on the world stage in terms of you know, being part of the British Empire, you know, being one, you know, there was a time, the 19th century, in the 19th century, Britain is what America is now, basically. You know, America's the main dominant superpower. Well, I mean, that's, you know, arguably changing, but for the last like 50, 60, 70 years, America's been like the main player on the world stage. That was Britain during the 19th century, and obviously Scotland was a part of that. So, you know, from that point of view, Union wasn't a bad thing. Was Union a bad thing? What's the arguments for that? I'm not overly sure. Yeah, I'm not overly sure. I mean, it's not something I've really looked into all that much. But obviously it's, you know, it's all about, what do you call it? Yeah, different points of view. The next episode we'll talk about the present day. You know, what's the plan for the present day? We shall see. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode. Till then, bye for now.